I'm Heather Hayes. Cindy Rodriguez Singh is now one of the FBI's 10 most wanted fugitives. It's a case out of Tarrant County that attracted international attention.
Throughout history, very few women have ever made it onto the FBI's 10 most wanted list. And when they do, it's never for petty crimes. These aren't your average criminals. These are women who led armed revolutions, pulled off million-dollar frauds, orchestrated bombings, and even turned on the people they once loved. In a world where crime is often dominated by men, these women defied every expectation, ruthless in their methods, rare in their appearances, but unforgettable in the chaos they left behind. These are the women of the FBI's 10 most wanted, rare, but absolutely ruthless. Let's begin with a name that sounds more like a movie villain than a real person. Ruja Ignatova, the woman known across the globe as the Crypto Queen. She's been on the FBI's 10 most wanted list for over 5 years, and her story is so unbelievable, you might think it's fiction. But this isn't just a tale of greed. It's a story about charm, deception, and one of the largest financial scams in history. Flashback to 2016, at the famous Wembley Arena in London. The lights dimmed, music blared, and out walked Ruja, wrapped in a glamorous red ball gown, holding a diamond-studded microphone like she owned the world. With all eyes on her, she boldly declared that her cryptocurrency, OneCoin, would soon destroy Bitcoin and become the #1 digital currency in the world. She called it the one true coin. The audience believed her, clapped for her, even worshipped her.
But what makes us different from all the Mickey Mouse coins out there who copy our concept? And I'll tell you what makes us different. I believe what makes us different is our vision. We are more than just one coin.
That single moment was the beginning of a massive global fraud. Between 2014 and 2016, people from all over the world poured their life savings into OneCoin. Over $4 billion vanished into thin air. In the United States alone, investors lost more than $50 million. Families hoping to build a better future were sold empty promises of multiplying their money 5 or 10 times over. But here's the truth that no one saw coming. OneCoin didn't even exist. There was no real cryptocurrency, no blockchain, no working exchange. Ruja didn't build a revolution. She built a pyramid scheme wrapped in tech buzzwords and glittering stage lights. Investors weren't buying crypto. They were unknowingly funding a digital Ponzi scheme, and to keep it going, they were told to bring in more people. The scam relied on word of mouth, fake trading platforms, and a woman who knew exactly how to appear trustworthy. And while she was fooling the world, she was laughing behind closed doors. Leaked emails between Ruja and her right-hand man, Carl Greenwood, revealed just how little she respected her followers. She called OneCoin trash. She called her investors idiots. In one message, she even joked about disappearing with all the money and letting someone else take the blame. And guess what? That's exactly what she did. In October of 2017, Ruja boarded a plane from Bulgaria to Greece. And then, poof, she vanished. No sightings, no arrests, not even a hint of where she might be. Just like that, the woman who once dazzled stadiums disappeared into thin air, leaving chaos behind. Meanwhile, Carl Greenwood wasn't so lucky. He was arrested, charged, and in 2023, sentenced to 20 years in prison for wire fraud and money laundering. He became the face of the collapse, while Ruja became a ghost. But who is Ruja Ignatova, really? She's not just a scammer, she's a genius manipulator. Fluent in 4 languages, armed with a PhD in law from Oxford, and trained in high finance, Ruja crafted a perfect image. A smart, confident, powerful woman with just enough mystery to keep people hooked. She flew in private jets, wore designer clothes, gave TED Talk-style presentations, and promised people around the world that she could change their lives. What she really did was destroy them. To this day, there's no solid answer on where she is. Some say she changed her appearance with plastic surgery and lives under a new name. Others believe she's hiding in Russia, or maybe the United Arab Emirates, slipping through borders with one of her many passports. One of the darkest theories? That someone within her own circle silenced her, permanently. But none of those theories have ever been proven. What has been proven is this. Ruja Ignatova is still out there, and the FBI wants her badly. There's currently a reward of up to $5 million for information that leads to her arrest and conviction. That's how serious this case is. She didn't just rob banks. She robbed trust, hope, and futures from millions of people around the world. Ruth Eisman Shear. Unlike today's modern cybercons like Ruja Ignatova, Ruth Eisman Shear's case takes us back to a crime so bizarre and disturbing that it marked a chilling milestone in American history. In late 1968, Ruth became the very first woman to be added to the FBI's 10 Most Wanted list, shocking the nation not just because of her gender, but because of the horrifying method she and her partner used to execute their crime. Ruth, at the time, was a 26-year-old graduate student at the University of Miami Institute of Marine Science. She was born in Honduras to Austrian Jewish refugee parents and appeared to be a dedicated academic with a bright future ahead of her. But everything changed when she met Gary Stephen Christ, an escaped convict with a magnetic, dangerous charm. Somehow, Ruth fell under his influence, and the two became criminal partners in a twisted plot that would soon unfold. On December 17, 1968, Ruth and Gary set their plan in motion. Disguised and impersonating police officers, they knocked on the door of 20-year-old Barbara Jane Mackle, the daughter of a wealthy real estate developer. Barbara was staying at a motel near Emory University in Georgia with her mother, recovering from a bout of the flu. When she opened the door, she was greeted not with help, but with horror. Ruth and Gary subdued her mother, chloroformed her, and then abducted Barbara at gunpoint. What followed next was something out of a psychological nightmare. Barbara was buried alive in a small wooden box roughly the size of a coffin, just 1.5 feet underground. The box had air pipes, a lamp, a small amount of food and water, and sedatives meant to keep her calm. Barbara remained underground for 83 harrowing hours, nearly 3.5 days, while the kidnappers demanded a ransom of $500,000. Adjusted for inflation, that ransom would be worth several million today. It was one of the most daring and cold-blooded crimes of its time. The FBI launched an all-out search to rescue Barbara. After several botched attempts to make the ransom drop, authorities finally recovered her after Gary gave them vague directions. Hundreds of agents combed through the area until they found her. Miraculously, she was still alive. Traumatized and weak, but alive. Her rescue was hailed as a miracle, and news of her survival made headlines across the country. Gary Christ was quickly captured after a dramatic manhunt in the Florida Everglades. But Ruth? She disappeared without a trace. For 79 days, she was on the run, becoming the subject of a nationwide search. Her face was splashed on newspapers and posters as the FBI added her to their most wanted list, the first woman ever to make the cut. Eventually, on March 5, 1969, Ruth was found in Oklahoma, applying for a hospital aide job under a fake name. A simple fingerprint check revealed her true identity and ended her time on the run. She was extradited back to Georgia, where she pleaded guilty to her role in the kidnapping. Ruth was sentenced to 7 years in prison but served only 4 before being deported to her native Honduras. Unlike her partner in crime, she faded from the spotlight after her release. Gary Christ, however, would later return to headlines, this time for smuggling drugs in the early 2000s, proving that some criminals never change. But it was Ruth who had already made history. Her role in the crime, the cold planning, and the shocking execution showed that even someone who appeared intelligent, refined, and academic could carry out something unthinkable. Her case not only terrified the nation, but also broke the illusion that women were somehow incapable of committing calculated, high-profile crimes. Shantae L Henderson. Her name didn't just echo through the streets of Kansas City, it made headlines across the country. At only 23 years old, Shantae L Henderson became one of the youngest women ever to be added to the FBI's 10 Most Wanted list. Her rise to infamy wasn't built on elaborate schemes or long-planned heists. It was fast, violent, and brutally direct. On a late September day in 2006, authorities say she walked right up to a man sitting in his truck at a gas station and, without hesitation, pulled the trigger multiple times. The victim, DeAndre Parker, didn't stand a chance. It was an execution-style murder that stunned the community, not just for its brutality, but for who had allegedly done it. Shantae wasn't some shadowy figure hiding in the background. She was a well-known presence in Kansas City's gang scene, allegedly connected to a string of shootings and suspected in as many as 5 other homicides. Law enforcement had been keeping tabs, but the gas station killing forced their hand. When she disappeared shortly after the murder, a manhunt began. It didn't take long for the FBI to take drastic action. On March 31, 2007, they added her to their 10 Most Wanted list. And just like that, her face was broadcast nationwide. But the hunt didn't last long. Less than 24 hours after being placed on the list, Shantae was caught hiding at a friend's apartment in Kansas City. It was one of the fastest captures in the history of the FBI's 10 Most Wanted. A $100,000 reward had been offered, and the public response was immediate. Her appearance on America's Most Wanted helped tip the scales. She was arrested without incident, but her story was far from over. In court, Shantae claimed that the killing was done in self-defense. She said the victim had threatened her by driving toward her in the gas station lot, but the judge didn't buy it. Though she was acquitted of murder, she was found guilty of voluntary manslaughter and armed criminal action. Her sentence? 10 years with 5 years suspended, and an additional 3-year term for weapons possession. Yet Shantae's pattern didn't stop there. In October 2011, while on probation, she was pulled over by officers who found an illegal firearm and drugs in her vehicle. That single stop added another 7-year federal sentence to her record. In total, Shantae Henderson received 17 years behind bars, with a projected release date in the year 2027. As of now, Shantae is 41 years old and remains incarcerated at the Pekin Federal Correctional Institution in Illinois. She is expected to be released in 2027, unless something changes. Until then, her story serves as both a cautionary tale and a haunting legacy of what happens when violence and vengeance collide. Marie Dean Arrington. In 1969, the nation had its eyes on Marie Dean Arrington, a mother and wife who turned killer after losing a shocking court battle. It all began when she was found guilty of murdering a public defender who opposed her divorce. an act she claimed was in defense of her children's rights. But she didn't stop there. In a chilling moment of rage, Marie murdered the defender's secretary in an attempt to influence the judge handling her case. That one act of vengeance exposed her as more than a grieving mother. It revealed a woman pushed to extremes. Once the second murder shook the courtroom, police launched a nationwide search for Marie. She vanished from her home with alarming speed, leaving behind a family and a crime scene full of unanswered questions. As suspicion spread, she became a household name, and in 1970, she earned a place on the FBI's 10 Most Wanted list. Her addition marked only the second time a woman had been recognized as a fugitive at that level, another rare and shocking moment in the country's criminal history. For months, authorities chased her across state lines. One report suggested she changed her appearance, dyeing her hair and altering her look. She was spotted in motels and on highways, always one step ahead, but never safe. Eventually, in 1971, about 2 years after her crimes, Marie was found hiding in a small Florida apartment. The arrest was quiet, swift, and without violence. She surrendered without incident, but the fallout from her capture would echo for years. Back in court, the full weight of her crimes came crashing down. She was tried and convicted again, this time for the death of the secretary. Her punishment was severe: life in prison. The trial, the verdict, and the public outrage painted a grim portrait of a crime of passion turned cold-blooded calculation. Through it all, Marie's personal complexities emerged. She was a mother who spoke of protecting her children. Some viewed her as a desperate parent driven to madness. Others saw her as a dangerous woman who believed she could play by her own rules. Her case raised intense debates about justice, mental state, and moral boundaries. Today, Marie Dean Arrington remains incarcerated. She has spent over 50 years behind bars, making her one of the longest-serving female prisoners in American history. Her prosecution and punishment continue to spark reflection. Was she a victim of circumstance, or someone who lost her moral compass? She seemed complex, haunted by loss, yet unflinching in her actions. Shenikica S. Miner. Now, her name emerged in headlines with a chilling reminder of how violent betrayal can manifest in the most unexpected ways. In the early months of 2016, Shenikica Miner, just 25 years old, became the center of a shocking crime in Arkansas. On a cold February morning, her neighbor, Angela Jackson, was found shot to death inside her home. Angela was pregnant, deeply loved, and welcomed community support in her final days. But the horror didn't end there. The killer had also taken the life of the unborn child she carried, striking at the heart of both woman and mother. It wasn't just murder. It was a double loss that rattled the state. Authorities quickly identified Shenikica as the prime suspect. Surveillance footage, cell phone data, and eyewitness testimony connected her to the crime scene. When she was nowhere to be found, the FBI took an unusual step. On June 12th of that year, they added her to their 10 Most Wanted list. A rare sight for any woman, even more so for someone whose destruction took place behind closed doors. Shenikica stayed on the run for nearly 3 weeks, her face plastered across news outlets and wanted posters. A $50,000 reward was offered for information leading to her arrest, a testament to the severity of her crime. Then, late in the evening on July 1st, she was captured in a small motel room in McAlester, Oklahoma. The arrest was quiet, but the shockwaves were loud. Arkansas was home to a killer who had betrayed the safety of her own neighborhood. In court, Shenikica maintained that the shooting wasn't premeditated. She claimed she acted in the intensity of a moment. But the prosecution presented a different story, one of careful planning and cold intent. Evidence showed she had bought the killer weapon days before and tracked Angela's routine. When the jury heard the facts and saw the weight of proof against her, their verdict was swift: guilty of 2 counts of capital murder. She was sentenced to life in prison with parole eligibility after 30 years, meaning the earliest she could walk free would be sometime in the mid-2040s. Shenikica's crime wasn't just brutal, it was deeply personal and heart-wrenching, shattering trust within a close-knit community. A pregnant woman murdered in her own home is the kind of horror lived nightly in nightmares, not neighborhoods. Her actions sparked sorrow, outrage, and renewed calls for better protections for women, especially vulnerable mothers. Today, Shenikica Miner remains incarcerated at the Arkansas Department of Corrections, serving her life sentence. She is one of the few women whose name appeared on the FBI's 10 Most Wanted list for a crime so hauntingly intimate and destructive. Her case remains a stark reminder. Violence can erupt anywhere, even in the supposed safety of a neighbor's front door, and its toll can echo for generations. Elizabeth Ann Duke. Back in the heat of the Cold War, while most Americans were glued to their televisions watching political debates and global tensions rise, there was a quieter storm brewing, one the public barely saw coming. Hidden behind the rhetoric of revolution and political justice, a radical group known as the May 19th Communist Organization was planning something far more dangerous. Their mission? To violently overthrow the United States government. And among their key operatives was a woman whose name would eventually become one of the most elusive in FBI history. Elizabeth Ann Duke wasn't the kind of criminal who left a trail of chaos in plain sight. She was a strategist, a planner, someone who worked behind the curtain, allegedly helping orchestrate a wave of bombings that shook government buildings, military facilities, and political targets across the country. By the mid-1980s, the FBI had connected her to several of these attacks, accusing her of conspiracy, possession of illegal explosives, and involvement in acts of domestic terrorism. But what truly sets Elizabeth apart from the rest isn't just the severity of her crimes, it's how she vanished. After being arrested in 1985 and released on bail, she disappeared before her trial could even begin. No one knows how she did it. There were no digital footprints, no security camera footage, no intercepted phone calls. One day she was there, then gone, like smoke slipping through cracks in the system. In October of that year, she became only the 7th woman to ever land on the FBI's 10 Most Wanted list. Authorities offered a reward of up to $100,000 for any information that could lead to her capture. But nothing came in. No leads, no sightings, just silence. Rumors swirled. Some claimed she fled overseas, possibly to Cuba or Europe, where political fugitives were sometimes granted safe haven. Others believed she changed her identity and blended into small-town America, living under the radar with forged documents and a carefully crafted backstory. A few even speculated that she may have died in hiding, but without proof, her name remained on the list, her file still open. What makes Elizabeth Ann Duke's case so captivating is the sheer mystery that surrounds her. Unlike other fugitives who are caught within days or years, Elizabeth has been missing for nearly 4 decades. Her face has aged, her appearance likely changed, and yet she remains one of the FBI's most wanted and most unknown fugitives. Today, her poster still hangs in federal offices and on the FBI's website, her story still whispered in circles that study homegrown extremism and radical politics. The reward is still there. The questions are still unanswered. And the woman who helped engineer chaos under the banner of ideology? she's still out there, somewhere. Angela Ivonne Davis. In the summer of 1970, the American spotlight turned toward one of the most iconic faces of the civil rights and feminist movements, Angela Ivonne Davis. She wasn't just another activist. She was a philosophy professor at the University of California, known for her stirring speeches and unwavering commitment to justice. What happened next sent shockwaves across the nation. The controversy began in August of that year, when a courtroom in Marin County, California, became the site of a bloody confrontation. Jonathan Jackson, a 23-year-old, burst into the courtroom armed and attempted to free 3 Black Panther co-defendants. The plan quickly collapsed. Several people were killed, including the judge, and Angela Davis's name emerged because the guns used were registered in her name. She wasn't physically present, but the association was enough. Suddenly, Angela became public enemy number 1. In August, she was placed on the FBI's 10 most wanted list. The first time a renowned public intellectual and a Black woman activist had been pursued by the agency. What followed next was nothing short of extraordinary. Angela went underground, stepping out of the academic sphere and into a nationwide fugitive hunt. For 74 days, she evaded capture. Supporters organized Free Angela campaigns, while the FBI issued wanted posters and $100,000 reward flyers. Television shows, newspapers, and radio all buzzed with her name. She was a symbol of political resistance and a shocking target of law enforcement. Then, in October of 1970, she walked into an airport in New York City. She was recognized and quietly arrested. The country breathed a collective sigh, her calm surrender contrasting sharply with the fierce storm her name had stirred. In court, Angela Davis stood her ground. She faced charges of conspiracy, kidnapping, and murder, but her defense was unwavering. She argued her innocence, framing her situation not as a crime, but as a political act and a test of civil liberties. After a 4-month trial, in February of 1972, she was acquitted of all charges. The jury found that there was no evidence she had participated in the courtroom attack, nor had she conspired to commit violence. Her acquittal transformed her from a fugitive into a legend. She couldn't return to her teaching position, but instead became a global figure in social justice, prison reform, and anti-war movements. She wrote best-selling books, gave lectures around the world, and remained a powerful voice for systemic change. Today, Angela Davis is in her 80s, still alive, still speaking. She continues to inspire generations of activists with her fierce intellect and unending conviction. Her name no longer carries the stigma of a fugitive. It's a testament to the power of resistance and the possibility of justice prevailing, even in the face of fear and repression. Bernardine Dorne. She didn't sneak her way onto the FBI's 10 most wanted list. She roared onto it. Bernardine Dorne was not your average outlaw. She didn't carry a gun, rob banks for money, or kill for power. No, she made it on that list because she dared to declare war on the United States government. And she did it with a law degree, a steel spine, and a revolutionary fire burning in her chest. The year was 1970. America was in chaos. The Vietnam War had turned the streets into battlegrounds, campuses into war zones, and young people into either soldiers or rebels. And Bernardine? She chose rebellion. She was a brilliant graduate of the University of Chicago Law School, but instead of becoming a courtroom star, she became the poster girl for radical resistance. Her weapon wasn't a gun, it was ideology, and her battlefield was the front lines of the anti-war movement. But Bernardine didn't just protest. She didn't just hold signs and chant in the streets. She wanted to bring the system to its knees. As one of the founders and key leaders of the Weather Underground, a militant faction of the Students for a Democratic Society, she helped launch a series of bombings that targeted U.S. government buildings. They didn't aim to kill. They aimed to send a message. But that message came with explosions, and the government took notice. And then came the turning point. In March of 1970, a bomb being built in a Greenwich Village townhouse exploded prematurely, killing 3 of their own members. It shocked the movement. The FBI pounced. The Weather Underground went underground. And Bernardine Dorne became America's most wanted woman. Her mugshots soon became legendary. With a piercing gaze and a fearless smirk, she stared straight into the camera like someone who wasn't afraid of the law, someone who thought she was above it. And for more than a decade, she stayed ahead of the game. Using fake names and secret hideouts, Bernardine vanished into the underground world she helped build. While most fugitives run in fear, Bernardine ran with purpose. She released radical manifestos, called for armed revolution, and remained a myth among the government agents chasing her. She was a ghost with a megaphone. The FBI didn't just want her for the bombings. She was charged with inciting riots and conspiracy. But it was her presence, her voice, her refusal to conform that made her a threat. To the FBI, she wasn't just a fugitive. She was a symbol of everything they were trying to crush. Yet after years of running, hiding, and living under assumed identities, the tide began to turn. The Weather Underground lost steam. The war ended. The public moved on. And in 1980, Bernardine emerged from the shadows. She turned herself in, walking into a courthouse in Chicago like a rock star ending her tour. People expected a long sentence. What they got was less. Due to illegal surveillance, government misconduct, and the collapse of some charges, Bernardine spent less than a year behind bars. That's right. After being on the FBI's 10 most wanted list for over 10 years, she did less than 12 months in jail. Once free, she didn't retreat. Instead, she reinvented herself. Bernardine became a law professor, leading a children's rights clinic at Northwestern University. She gave lectures, wrote books, and raised a family. And if that sounds tame, don't be fooled. Her beliefs didn't die. They simply evolved. She never apologized for joining the Weather Underground. In interviews, she remained confident in her cause, while admitting the methods might have been extreme. She called it a necessary rebellion during a time of injustice. To her critics, she's a terrorist. To her supporters, a revolutionary hero. Either way, Bernardine Dorne didn't just make history. She exploded into it. The first woman to lead a domestic militant group in the U.S., the first law school graduate to make the FBI's top 10 list, and the rare fugitive who walked away with her life, freedom, and legacy intact. Next, Susan Edith Saxs and Katherine Ann Power, 2 names that once echoed through America's most wanted lists like a defiant war cry from the radical underground. These weren't hardened criminals from the streets. No, they were college students. Intelligent, passionate, and fiercely political. Susan was studying at Brandeis University, while Katherine attended Boston College. In a time when the Vietnam War was tearing the country apart and social unrest was at its boiling point, these 2 young women weren't satisfied with marching or chanting. They believed the only way to change the system was to take it down. So in 1970, they joined a radical 5-person group with a plan that sounded more like a Hollywood heist than a student protest. First, they broke into a National Guard armory in Massachusetts, stealing weapons and explosives. But that was only the beginning. On September 22nd, they attempted an armed robbery at the State Street Bank in Brighton, Massachusetts. They needed cash to fund their anti-establishment revolution. But everything went horribly wrong. Officer Walter Schroeder responded to the silent alarm. As he approached the scene, he was gunned down, shot in the back. He later died, leaving behind a wife and 9 children. The robbery became a murder. Within days, federal arrest warrants were issued. Susan and Katherine vanished. And just like that, these 2 educated middle-class women became fugitives and folk legends. Susan Saxs landed on the FBI's 10 Most Wanted list, one of the few women to ever appear there at the time. Susan evaded authorities for over 5 years, hiding in plain sight, changing names, and dodging every close call. But in 1975, her luck ran out. She was captured in Philadelphia and sentenced to 5 years in prison. She would later speak out about her actions, maintaining her radical ideals even after serving time. Katherine Power, however, took a different path. She didn't just disappear for a few years, she stayed hidden for 23 years. Under a new identity, she lived a quiet life in Oregon. She married, raised a son, and worked as a chef. But behind the suburban peace was a storm of guilt. In 1993, she walked into a Boston courthouse and surrendered. She admitted to everything. Her quiet confession sent shockwaves through the country. Many were stunned that she had built a whole new life, while a murder charge loomed over her past. She was sentenced to 8 to 12 years and was released in 2000. Katherine later became an advocate for restorative justice, sharing her story as a warning and a lesson in accountability. Donna Wilmont. Born during the era of student uprisings and anti-government sentiment, Donna became heavily involved in far-left revolutionary politics throughout the 1970s and 80s. But she didn't just talk the talk. She walked it all the way into the FBI's 10 Most Wanted list. Her most notorious act. In 1985, Donna and her partner, Claude Marks, devised an elaborate plan to break Oscar Lopez Rivera, a Puerto Rican nationalist, out of federal prison. Rivera was considered a leader of the FALN, a militant group linked to more than 100 bombings across the United States in the name of Puerto Rican independence. The plan could have been pulled straight from a spy novel. Donna posed as a medical technician, sneaking contraband into the prison. Fake IDs, weapons, explosives, everything was in place. But just before they could execute the plan, federal agents caught wind of it. In 1987, Donna and Claude were indicted, and then vanished. For nearly 10 years, Donna Wilmont disappeared from the public eye. Her name appeared on FBI posters, and her face was broadcast across television screens, but she remained underground. During those years, she gave birth to a son, homeschooled him, and constantly moved from place to place, always one step ahead of the law. She lived under aliases, protected by a small network of sympathizers who believed in her cause. Then, in 1994, Donna and Claude decided to surrender, not because they were captured, but because they chose to turn themselves in. They believed they could make more of an impact by facing the consequences and continuing their activism in the open. Donna pled guilty to conspiracy and weapons charges and was sentenced to 5 years in federal prison. After her release, she returned to social justice work, focusing on community initiatives and living a much quieter life. And lastly, the latest addition to today's FBI 10 Most Wanted list is Cindy Rodriguez Singh, a name now linked to a crime that has left communities across 2 countries shaken. Cindy's alleged crime unfolded in Texas in July of 2025, when she reportedly murdered her 6-year-old son and vanished soon after. The case sent shockwaves through her hometown and beyond, prompting fears that she might have fled the country with the aid of family or close contacts. Her disappearance triggered an urgent international search, with the FBI offering a reward of $250,000 for information leading to her capture. Authorities believe Cindy may have crossed the border into nearby Mexico, though no confirmed sightings have surfaced. Some theories suggest she could be hiding in India, her country of origin, or elsewhere abroad, possibly using multiple identities to stay under the radar. Her youth and ability to blend into different communities add to the complexity of the investigation, making the hunt for her both critical and challenging. Her inclusion on the FBI's 10 most wanted list marks a new kind of fugitive, one who allegedly committed a deeply personal and desperate act, then disappeared into thin air, leaving loved ones reeling and officials racing against time. Cindy Singh has become a haunting reminder that danger can masquerade as the familiar, and that sometimes the most devastating threats come from within the home. As of now, Cindy remains at large. The FBI continues to update her wanted poster, urging anyone with information, no matter how small, to step forward. Her story is still unfolding, and the world is watching, waiting for closure and justice. Now it's your turn. What do you think about these women? Each one of them made history in the most shocking ways. Some vanished without a trace. Others walked straight into justice. But all of them share one thing in common. They proved that danger doesn't come with just a name. It comes with a plan. So, out of all the women on this list, who shocked you the most? Whose story left you speechless? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you've made it this far, be sure to check out this next video. I think you'll enjoy it. Thank you once again for watching.